Edwin, you start, right?
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Edwin Quesada, and I'm a professor at UCR's El Pacifico, and I have the honor to introduce today's speaker, Walter Araya. So Walter Araya Garita is an English instructor. He holds an MA in teaching English as a foreign language and Master of Science in Administration, both from the University of Costa Rica, where he graduated with honors. He also has a specialty in educational planning and administration from the University of Educational Planning, India. He has worked in the School of Modern Languages for more than 15 years in teaching and administrative positions. He has taught courses for the BA in English and Master's English program. Currently, he's responsible for a social extension program on standardized high-stakes language assessment. He has also published different articles in national and international journals and offered talks about language assessment and planning in countries such as Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, and Chile. And well, we have the opportunity this evening to have him here with us. So welcome, Walter. It's an honor to have you here with us.
Well, thank you very much, Edwin. The honor is mine. As Edwin said, I'm your humble servant, Walter Araya. I'm working at the School of Modern Languages currently, coordinating a program on assessment. I'm an English teacher, but the coordination that I have now is about language assessment. I'm telling people you pass the test, you fail the test, you speak English, you don't speak English. So that's a tough job because taking the test is not a problem. The problem is when we give back the results. So that's a tough position. And we English teachers, dear students, we have to face that. And you're gonna do it in the future, in the near future, during your careers. So as I said before, it has been an honor, and I would like to talk to you about English language testing in Costa Rica, the scenario that we have nowadays. I do understand that you take a general assessment course or language assessment course that you are studying to become English teachers. So I would like to talk a little bit about how to assess in a second language what we have in Costa Rica. First, what we have in Latin America, then what we have in Costa Rica, and then some basic concepts for you to know about language assessment. Assessment is everywhere. So let me hide this. Assessment is everywhere. And we perform assessments all the time. We make assessments or judgments about hundreds of things, big and small. Assessment assists us in making all kinds of decisions, helps us grow intellectually, socially, and maybe save our lives. So that's something that we do every single day. But how to do that in our classrooms? How to say, well, Adriana is doing well, or Jaderling is excellent. But then we have to transform that impression or judgment we have into a grade. So that's the hard part. But we do assessment every day. Probably you see, well, it seems to me that this talk is going to be boring because it's about assessment and I don't like assessment. So you are doing that in this moment. And let me continue. Okay, this is the other one. One of the concerns that we all English teachers have is that language assessment literacy, or what we English teachers know about assessment, is few, it's not enough for most of us, because according to a study conducted, for example, by Levy Baharet and Alija, in 2015, they found that, that for example, in Israel, teachers are underprepared for their assessment practices. They were very good teachers, they were very good English teachers, but they didn't know how to evaluate. This happened 6 years ago in Israel. Other two researchers, 2 years later, found that most of the teachers did not feel sufficiently prepared for their everyday language assessment activities, after they even had completed the pre-service teacher training. So those people knew how to teach. We're talking about English teachers, but they were not confident when it comes about assessment. Why? Because most of the institutions around the world did not offer, let me move this, do not offer mandatory language assessment courses. So most of us, including me, receive only general assessment courses. And this is this graph that I have here, that you can see that we have examples of 4 different countries. For example, in Brazil, more than 50% of English teachers only receive general assessment courses. Only 34% of English teachers receive general assessment and language assessment courses. In Chile, the situation is a little bit better because more English teachers receive, 47% receive general assessment and language assessment. But what about Mexico and Colombia, for example? In Mexico, almost 60% of the English teachers do not receive assessment courses. So how are they going to evaluate their students? That's serious. And in Colombia, the situation is better compared to Mexico, but it's not good enough. Why? Because only like a little bit more than 22% of the teachers, of the English teachers, receive both general assessment and language assessment. This is the scenario we have in Latin America. Let's talk about Costa Rica. This is a study published in the Política Educativa para la Promoción de Idiomas. How many people speak another language in Costa Rica? Well, that's the question they asked. Do you speak another language in Costa Rica? Only 10% answer yes, we do. We are part of that 11%. So it means that 89% of the Costa Ricans do not speak another language. So we're going to have lots of job opportunities right in the future. So that's our target population as English teachers. And this is going to be even better for us English teachers. Out of that 11%, 90% say that they speak English. That's the second language they speak. The other one is, well, in this case, Spanish as a second language, because they probably had foreigners in this study. 3% speak another language and 2% speak French. This is a study, again, conducted by the Ministry of Education. What about, but you say only 10% of people speak English in Costa Rica, or 11% speak English in Costa Rica. In Latin America, according to Education First, that's an institution, that's an index. Education First publishes every year an index according to the proficiency level of different languages around the world. In Latin America, we are number 2. What do I mean by number 2? The best spoken, written, and the best proficiency level of English speakers in Latin America is in Argentina. The second one in Costa Rica, and the third one in Mexico. So the best English people may find in Latin America is from Argentina. They speak better English than us. More people speak English than us. But we are number 2 in Latin America and number 35 around the world. So that's good news. What do we mean by this? That we are doing a good job. The English teachers are doing a good job, and that's something that you have to continue doing that. If you have any question, any comment, let me know, because if we leave the questions for the end of the session, probably you will forget them, okay? Well, so, but this is the question. How can you say that you speak another language? Any volunteer that would like to answer this question? Maybe we can start with the teachers, right? Edwin or Adriana, how can you say that you speak another language? What would be the answer for that?
Maybe I can tell something. Well, I think that you speak another language if you're able to communicate your thoughts. If you try to communicate and the other person actually understands and answers what you're actually saying or asking, I think you're able to know the language and to communicate. So you know the language in a certain way.
Perfect. Excellent answer or excellent response. Adriana, I agree. Edwin, you wanted
In
to
my
say
case,
something?
yeah, thank you. For me, an indicator that I can speak another language is when I get the level to speak with another person, to communicate effectively to the point that I am able to even make jokes with the person I am talking to, and that we understand what we mean. You know, if we are able to get to that level of reading between the lines when we speak, I would say we are bilingual. We can speak another language.
Okay, that's a good point. When you can even transfer your sense of humor, Edwin, to other people, right? That's a good point. Maureen?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, okay, good afternoon. Someone once told me that the day that you stop thinking in Spanish and translate, that's the day that you start to speak another language.
That's a good point, and that's something that also a little bird told me years ago. When you start dreaming, for example, in English, is that you acquired the language. And I remember once that I was dreaming that my mother was telling me, Walter, don't do this. And she's talking to me in English and she doesn't know English at all. So that was a good sign. What about you, students? Tell me, how do you know that you speak another language? Because you are understanding what I said. You are understanding what Adriana said and Edwin and Maureen. So how do you know that you speak another language? Because that's a good question that we English teachers have to answer. I can go and ask Adriana or Edwin. Edwin, do you think, or Adriana, do you think that I speak English? So based on the evaluation, on the assessment that we are going to have, that we are going to create based on the evidence that students have, we're going to say, yes, you speak English, or no way, you have to start again. Any other comment that you would like to share with us? Any volunteer that would like to participate? Because the idea is to make interactive this presentation. Maureen told me that we have 4 hours to talk. No, it's only 1 hour. That's a bad joke. Okay, but any comment that you would like to share with us? No? Okay, here we have Angel. She's saying,
well, we could get the humor from Walter, so he's bilingual.
The problem is my sense of humor. That probably is not English, but it's the sense of humor that is the worst on earth. So Angel Torres Garita says, as Professor Edwin, I think that we can joke in another language. We speak another language. If we can joke in another language, we can speak another language. But sometimes people came to my office, as I said before, because I coordinate this assessment program, and they say, Walter, I speak English. Entonces hágame una cartica que yo hablo inglés because I can't to speak, yes. So that's the way it was managed before, but now we have technical and scientific proofs that we can use as English teachers. The other one is the Common European Framework of Reference. Then this is another tendency or another concept that became a tendency for us, for English teachers, because you are going to say, Walter is A1. Okay, Natalia Sosa is A2. Esteban Santos, B1. Edwin, B2. And Maureen, C1. And Fabián Oviedo, C2. Have you heard about the Common European Framework of References for Languages? Do you know about it? Yes, Axel says yes. You can raise your hand doing like using the reactions like, yes, I know that, like this one that I have. Do you know about the Common European Framework of References? Okay, yes. Okay, Edwin said yes. Stephanie said yes. Some other students said yes. And the rest of you? Natalie Sosa said yes. Carlos also said yes. Good. Stefania Araya. Isaac? Yep. Excellent. So for those of you who haven't heard about the Common European Framework of Reference, this is something that this is a framework, because in the past, people said, okay, Edwin is advanced, Walter is intermediate, Adriana is beginner. But what does it mean? So now we have a framework, and the framework of reference gives you a detailed description of learner level by skill. And skill, I'm talking about listening, speaking, reading, and writing in a language neutral format. It is a useful reference document for school directors, your bosses, and you're going to be boss in any moment of your life. For syllabus designers, because you are going to create courses in the future. For teachers, the best position that you may have in your life, because that's something that we love, being teachers, teacher trainers, and proficient learners. At this moment, because you are going to be proficient learners, is something that you have to manage. The CIFER has 3 broad bands, A, B, and C. And very loosely, you can see this as similar to beginner, intermediate, and advanced, but it's more than that. Though the CIFER levels are more precise than these terms. And these terms are called basic, independent, and proficient. Each of those bands is divided into 2, giving us 6 main levels, okay? So these are the levels. So we have basic users, independent users, and proficient users. So when you graduate, you have to be at least B2. And with practice, you will be B1. If you want to be hired by the Ministry of Education, you have to be? What is the answer to this question? What level do you have to get? Do you know the level? C1, Angel, that's correct. To get a tenure position. A tenure position is that you have propiedad, right? So primary school and first, second year school students, A1, they can communicate in basic English with help from the listener. When they finish primary school students, they have to be A2. They can communicate in English a limited range of context. So that's the way stage. B1, 7th, 8th, and 9th level of high school. So people can communicate essential points and ideas in familiar contexts. Vantage, that's the idea that the goal the Ministry of Education has, that students, when they finish high school, are going to be able to use English effectively with some fluency in a range of contexts. Then the rest of the people, it means as English teachers, or in some specific opportunities for job opportunities, we have to be C1. So we have to be able to use English fluently and flexibly in a wide range of contexts. And C2 is the mastery level, very highly proficient users of the language. Those people can use English very fluently, precisely, and sensitively in most contexts. Most of these people are graduate students, international graduate students, and professionals in their fields. How long does it take? How long does it take to learn another language? That's another question that I have. How long does it take to be B1? How long does it take to be B2? How long does it take to be C1? Because I live in Cartago, and there are some institutions that what do the marketing like this: come to my institution, and in 6 months you're going to speak English. And probably, I mean, they can make jokes. I don't know if that's part of the business, but how long does it take to be A1, A2, B1, B2? Do you know? Because you are going to be English teachers, and for example, any person can come and say, Leandro, I want your help. I want to speak English. So how long does it take? Any possible guess? Angel, years. It takes years.
Can I
Please
add a piece of? Yeah. Well, I would say the answer is yeah, we can say years, at least. Yeah. It's a question that is not easy to answer because it depends on many variables. For example, we need to, as English teachers, we should know that not all people have the same innate skills for learning languages. First, we have to understand that for some people, it's not that some people will not be able to learn the language. No, everyone can, but some people will take longer than others, and that is something to take into consideration. Also, the kind of process that students are going to follow, the kind of exposition they have, the kind of practice, the time dedicated to it. So I don't want to steal a stage. So that's what I wanted to say.
Perfect, Edwin. It's like it depends on the person, not on the teacher. I like that answer. Excellent. Maureen.
I just want to say that beside Adriana, we also have Professor Daniela. So maybe Professor Daniela can give us some opinion about that. Daniela, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry, it's because I'm getting some connection problems.
That's okay. Daniel, right?
No, Daniela. Daniela is over there, but we have teacher Daniela, but I don't see her. It was supposed to be here. Okay, teacher Daniela is here. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm having internet connections, but okay, I'm having some troubles with my internet access, but I'm here. Yes,
okay.
I'm agree with Professor Edwin. It depends of many things. It depends on the student also, because if you have motivation, if you want to be fluent, you practice and practice and practice, and you know, practice makes perfection. So it depends on of oneself. It depends on what do you want to get and how you want to get it.
Exactly, because some students are going to go to these formal processes of learning English with guided learning processes, and some other people are not going to stay there. They're going to go to their houses to practice more, to watch movies, to listen to podcasts, etc., to the different tools that we have to improve our language skills. So it depends on the student, the motivation has, the skills or intelligences, if we can call that an intelligence, using Howard Gardner's concept of multiple intelligences. So that's something that we have to tell our students. We English teachers can say, okay, we are going to work here. If you do the homework, if you come to classes, if you pay attention, if you study at home, you're gonna make it. But if you think that I am the Holy Spirit and I'm going to transmit my knowledge by Bluetooth, forget it. You're going to be A1 or A2, okay? Because according to CIFER, it takes more than 1,000 hours of guided learning mediation to become, for example, C2. And okay, now the question is, well, now I am C1, approximately 800 hours of learning, guided learning hours. So once I am C1, that's it, I got it, it's finished. No, there is another concept that is called language attrition. If you don't practice the language after 2 or 3 years, you will forget it. But that's the bad news. The good news is that if you practice the language after 2 or 3 years, your level is not going to be the same. It's going to be superior to the one that was tested when you took the test. So this is the approximation of guided learning hours per band. Okay. Let me see what's next. Okay, then you can say, okay, that's what I have to study. But what about my teachers? Because that's a situation that is not only taking place in Costa Rica, but it's also present around the world. You can say, okay, I won't be able C1 because my teacher is not C1. I can see that. Or I won't be able to be B2 because I think my teacher makes grammar mistakes or doesn't know how to pronounce. And then I ask question and my teacher doesn't know the exact or specific vocabulary for what I was trying to learn or to obtain. That's correct. This is the situation in Costa Rica. Let me explain this table. When you were probably in primary school, it was 13 years ago, we had more than 200 English teachers that were A1 in 2008. That's a worrying situation that Costa Rica had. We had almost 1,000 students that were A2. So they were A2 basic users of the language, but they were basic users of the language. 900 teachers, and now we are talking more than 50% of the total of English teachers, they were B1. And only 33% of the teachers were competent to teach English in Costa Rica. This is information from the Ministry of Education. This is the first exercise because in the past, you only had to submit your university degree, and that was it. Now, 7 years later, there was another exercise testing the English teachers. And the good news is that 7 years later, only 59 teachers were A1. So that was excellent news. Nowadays, I don't think that we have A1 teachers in the Ministry of Education. And see that also the A2 teacher, the quantity is lower or was lower 6 years ago. B1 teachers, this quantity moved from 900 up to 625. So again, there was an improvement in the quality of education. And the excellent news is that you can see that B2 and C1 teachers represent almost 60% of the total English teachers population in Costa Rica. Okay, so this is information from the Política Educativa para la Promoción de Idiomas. Now, if you want to apply for a job position in any school, you have to be B2, and you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. Maureen has been working with us to give different tests to students, right? Maureen, we have done different practices, and most of the students are B2 and even C1. So that's excellent news. So keep on practicing. Okay. This is an exercise. Okay, but what about students? Now, this is an exercise that we did for preschool teachers. I'm talking about kindergarten teachers. This is an exercise that we did 2 years ago. They were not English teachers. So most of them, 95% were A1 and A2. Why am I showing this to you? Because the Ministry of Education wants to teach those two levels that are I don't remember the name in Spanish in the primary, in the educational system, Primera Infancia. I think that's the name they have. But if you want, when I was a student, it was called kindergarten, but now it's different, right? So what they want to do. Educación inicial. Thank you, Teacher Danny. Thank you very much. The good news is that the Ministry of Education wants to teach those two levels in English. And see the English level these teachers have. So that means more job opportunities for you. Okay. Now I'm going to talk to you about the language proficiency that students from high school, public, bilingual, and private have in Costa Rica. Okay, this is the first graph that I want to show you. This is an article that I published this year, and almost 80% of students are A2. And the program says that students have to be B2. So there is a problem there. Probably in 2, 3, or 4 years, this is going to improve. Having less students in this band, and probably B1 and B2 will have more students, because as you can see in this graph, 0% of the total population is C1. I'm talking about probably 50, 60 students out of 50,000 people. Okay. So this is the total population, high school students in the 5th year, during the 5th year. If we want to talk about private institutions, the situation improves, because here we have at least 1% that is C1. And you can see that A2 students only represents 17%. Most of the students from private institutions are B1. And also we have an important group that represents B2, because obviously they receive more English classes during the week. We also have bilingual schools. We have like 20 bilingual schools in Costa Rica. In this case, 58% are B1. Again, that's good news, because A2 students represents only 28%. The problem here is that we don't have C1 students, okay? And let me see. Okay, let me go back. Any question, any comment so far that you would like to make? That Adriana, Ewing, or Daniela, right? Maureen, or the rest of the students? Any question?
Yeah, I would like to add something. I also work at a high school, and it's incredible. This one is a private high school, and it's incredible how they actually improved a lot. But I don't know, this is a special case. I think they receive more than 12 lessons per week. So we can actually get like students with C1 level. And actually for the first test, the public system did like 2 years ago or so. We got like 2 students with C1, and we were like in the 5th place in the whole country. So it's amazing how not many students achieve this C1 in a high school level.
Yeah, it's something that we have to think about. I'm talking about English teachers, right? Okay, thank you, Adriana. Any other comment? No? So let's continue with the other picture that I had here. So they were bilingual high schools. And this is something that this is a picture that makes us think about the instruments that we have to create as English teacher. The teacher here said, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. And the same exam is, please climb that tree. Who's going to win? Probably the monkey, right? But what about the fish? What do I mean by this? That we all are different. We all are different, and our students are going to be different. And what Edwin said at the very beginning, when he was telling us that it's very difficult to say that this person is going to learn faster compared to the other, is because we have different abilities to cope with the learning system that we have here. And if we have to teach them in a different way, we also have to evaluate in a different way using the same framework that I explained before. We have the CIFER, we have another one that is made by ACFL, but the one that we have to use that is very popular is CIFER. What do I mean by this? That, for example, when we gave a standardized test to measure the language proficiency, it was a computer-based test. Some students didn't know how to open the laptop, the computer. So they didn't know how to use computers. So for those students, we had to adapt the test in a paper-based format, okay? We also have to adapt the accommodations or adaptations of our tests to try to take advantage of the strengths our students have and develop the weaknesses they may show in their learning processes. Because you have to tell your students that an exam is not punishment. Assessment or testing is a celebration of the achievement of objectives. Testing or assessment is not just giving a grade, because you are not an 8, you're not a 9, you're not a 10. Assessment is a part of a methodological cycle that is necessary for us to grow as an institution, as teachers, as students. We need to grow. Assessment is just not giving exams. Assessment is also the feedback for both learners and teachers. Every time we have an English test, I'm talking about the group of teachers that work with me, we also learned a lot. It's not only to measure the different people level of proficiency, but it's also a learning experience for us. Every time we create a test, we learn. Even though we have been working for this or in this specific field for more than 15 years. So you have to know about the functions of the assessment, if it is formative or if it is summative. Formative in the sense to form competencies or to lead to the formation, and summative to measure what students have learned or not at the end of the course. Because if you create a test at the end of the course, that's called summative. But if you are going to use, for example, the TOEIC test, that's formative. Or if you are going to tell your students to create, for example, a portfolio, that's formative. To obtain evidence of everything they have learned during the process. In language testing, which is different to any other field, we have norm reference or criterion reference. Norm reference is like the one that we have in TOEIC, based on the interpretation of the scores related to a mean. This is very technical. Criterion reference is based on the objectives designed for the specific course, and also to give feedback or a grade to our students. Then we have high stakes, and this is something that we have to keep in mind because you are going to face this type of evaluation. Once you graduate, you are going to take this test. You have to prepare your students to take this test, and probably in the future, who knows, you have to create this type of test. What is high stakes? High stakes is an assessment that is used to provide results that have important direct consequences for individuals, programs, or institutions involved in the assessment process. For example, TOEIC test, that's high stakes. At the University of Costa Rica, we give examen de traductores e intérpretes oficiales. If you pass the test, you can be a traductor oficial. If you don't pass the test, you cannot, even though you have a master's on translation, you cannot be a traductor oficial. So that's the importance of creating a fair instrument, taking into account the picture we observed at the beginning of this second part of the presentation. Also, here we have some examples of high stakes assessment. For example, graduation, in the past, examen de bachillerato. This is not present in Costa Rica, that is called grade promotion or retention, qualification for special services, awarding of scholarships, placement, admission to programs or institutions, professional, licensing and certification, salary increases, and or bonuses. One high stake that is very competitive that you made is the entrance examination for the University of Costa Rica, the famous examen de admisión. That's high stakes. If you pass the test, you may have, you can enter to a major and then you're going to have a career. If you don't pass the test, okay, the chances to be professional are less, okay? Then we have low stakes assessment, and this is the exams that you are going to create for your students that are going to be given in the classroom. Why is that low stakes? Because it's an assessment that is used to provide the results that have only minor or indirect consequences for individuals, programs, or institutions involved in the assessment process. You are not going to change the life of a person based on the result of that specific test. Okay, and that's, and for example, I give a test, and I know that Catherine Fallas is an excellent student, but for that specific test, she got 4 out of 10. So something happened to her in that specific moment. So we can control the situation and probably talk to her and change the grade if something happened to her. But what about when we are giving a standardized test, for example, a placement test or proficiency test? So we have to guarantee the same conditions for all students because you don't know them. In the program I coordinate, we evaluate more than 80,000 people per year, and I don't know them. And we have to be as objective as possible with them. So if I give the same opportunity to Esteban Santos, the same opportunity has to be given to Ignacio, for example. So that's something that we English teachers have to face during our careers, and that is something that only lives is or our experience, working experience, may teach us. Then examples of low stakes assessment is to make mistake. Assessment is in which students are given the opportunity to try, make mistakes, and learn from those mistakes with no penalty, and are not given suggestions, feedback for improving their performance, and are with no penalty and are given suggestions, feedback for improving their performance. So that's a low stakes. Here is the definition, or some other examples like peer assessment or self-assessment. And here are some examples of different English tests that you can take in Costa Rica and where you can take them. For example, if you go to Centro Cultural, you can take the TOEIC or TOEFL. There are other opportunities, for example, IELTS and the different exams that the University of Cambridge gives. They can be taken in specific high schools. Tech also offers the Oxford Test of English. In our case, the University of Costa Rica, we offer the Pearson Test of English, another test that is for kids that is called TEOL. Also the Translation and Interpretation Test for the Ministry of International Relations that is offered at the University of Costa Rica. You are going to ask, what is the best test we can take? All of them are excellent assessment tools. TOEIC is like $150. IELTS is like $300. That's the difference. Okay, but if you want, as I said before, if you want to work for the Ministry of Education, you have to submit with the degree that the university is going to give you one of these certifications, saying that you are B2 or C1. To conclude, if you want a job for life, do testing. We never get it right. There is so much to do in this field. This was said by Professor Barry O'Sullivan, who is a specialist in language assessment, language testing. So this is the session for questions, Q&A section. So if you have any question, Maureen told me an hour. So we have 5 more minutes.
Okay, if anyone has a question, don't feel afraid to ask Walter, and don't worry about your English. We are just learning. I think that today we learned a lot about assessment. Okay, so you have any question, just ask Walter or anyone of us. Okay, so go ahead.
Or you can write it in the chat. If you feel more comfortable.
Yes.
Well, actually, I have a question, and I don't know if somebody here can tell us, in general, advice for the TOEIC and TOEFL. Advice for achieve maybe a B2 or C1, something like it, maybe.
Okay, my advice would be to practice a lot before, but don't concentrate on the test. Try to know a lot about yourself, because in my personal experience, many people get stressed, very stressed when they take this test. So for example, they can know a lot about language. They are C1. The problem is that they are, let me use this expression, killed during the test, because their feelings and probably insecurity and anxiety and all those negative feelings are killing the person. So know yourself, don't worry about the test. Remember what I said before, assessment is a celebration of the learning that we have done during our lives. And also, what I mean by this is that you have to know how to develop the test. So for example, if you know that listening is very stressful for you, So concentrate on the speaking part because you may feel more comfortable with that part. Or if conversation is a weakness that you think you have, so concentrate on the reading part because you feel more comfortable on that and on writing. So develop different strategies to take the test. Okay, if you go, because you don't know about this type of test, you go the first time to see how the test works. How is it given? What do I have to do? And this is important for you. When you are going to be teachers, don't surprise your students in the test. The more familiar the test is for students, the more reliable the result is going to be. Because there are some teachers that they are wonderful teachers and they explain this wonderful theory and wonderful presentations and activities during class, and then you go to the exam and you say, my goodness, where on earth this person took this question? That happens. And the same thing happened, and the same thing happens, and the same thing is going to happen for standardized testing. You have never taken this type of test before. So before taking the test, go and take practices, see how it works, see the different sections it has, and based on your personality, try to take different strategies to take the test. I don't know if I answered the question or now you have more questions than answers based on my answer. Any other? Evan, you raised your hand. Do you have any other question? Stephanie?
I have a question. How does one as future teacher to create equal opportunities for all your students?
Okay, you have to know your students, Stephanie. The first homework that we English teachers have is that during the first week, we have to know our students, or during the first month. So we are going to say that Stephanie is excellent in speaking. She speaks excellent and she always likes to talk, but she has problems with writing. So based on that information, you have to create the best assessment instrument and try to develop that weaknesses that the student is going to have. For example, writing. It's impossible because it's very time consuming to create an exam for every single student. But it's an approximation, Stephanie, because the exam, if we have a conversation, it's going to be at this moment, if we have a conversation, Stephanie, and I am giving you a test, it's going to be an approximation of your performance. So the exam will never give you the exact evidence to create a conclusion about the performance of the students. And it's even worse in language teaching, because if you evaluate social studies, it's a question based on theory. But we English teachers have to evaluate writing. And every person writes in a different way. And evaluating reading. Okay, for example, there is a text that says, the house is yellow. And the question is, why did they paint the house using yellow? And option A, because the owner liked yellow. Option B, because that's the only house in the neighborhood that is yellow. And option C, because all the houses in the neighborhood are yellow. So that house had to fit with the neighborhood. So all the three different answers are correct based on the interpretation that we are given to the text. Okay, so as I said before, it's going to be an approximation, but you will never, if a teacher says, okay, Stephanie, you got 80 in the oral exam, it's an approximation. You are not 8. You can be 9 or you can be 7, but it's not an approximation. Edwin, you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted now, based on what you said lately towards the end of your talk, the fact that regardless of having a master's degree and lots of certificates, the fact is that if you want to get a tenure at MEP, for instance, you really need to show that you are proficient. So in this sense, it becomes so important more than ever, the being honest, but being honest with ourselves, especially during this time of the pandemic, in which, well, we can make use of resources, and we can, there are many even situations that may arise, and we have all the resources available for us. So it's not, the most important thing is not just to pass a test, but it's to really learn. So this is something that should make us think of how important right now it is to be honest with ourselves, and to really work in order to improve our levels. Then I wanted to add to the student who asked for help about standardized tests. I can share my experience with two of these standardized tests. I took TOEFL and IELTS, but that was like 15 years ago. So they were a little bit different. I have never taken TOEIC, because when TOEIC was implemented, I had already stopped working for the Ministry of Education long before. But in the case of TOEFL, at that time, TOEFL did not have the speaking component. I don't know if Walter knows. If I have the idea that nowadays TOEFL involves speaking, but I can tell my experience. TOEFL is, or used to be, I found similarities with the admission test to the UCR at that time, which was different as well, in the sense that even if you are a native speaker of the language, but you don't have like these skills in order to, for example, in listening, you listen to a very short conversation, and then the question, what does the person mean? And you have to read between the lines. You have to understand what was the purpose of the person when he or she said that. So, and we have, this is another thing that is important, especially in listening. You have approximately, or you used to have approximately 8 seconds to analyze 4 answer choices. So you have like 2 seconds for analyzing each sentence and deciding whether it is correct or not. The problem is that all of them look pretty much alike. So it's not easy, but if you develop your listening skill, your reading skill, there used to be grammar at that time. I don't know if at the moment they still have it, but I have an experience with grammar. In that moment, it was called structure. I did not consider myself quite good at grammar at that point, because I did not know like many rules, many grammatical rules, and many English courses, many teachers like to teach rules and to test those rules, the knowledge of those rules. But it's more important, more than knowing the rule, that you are able to use the right structure for a particular purpose. So in other words, to finish, it's better practice than theory. Theory is important, but if you don't take that into practice, you have an important weakness to improve there. And that's my participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that participation. Yeah, I would like to say that when we were at high school, we studied to pass a test. Now that we are going to be professionals, we have to study to show that we know. And that's what we have to do when we are thinking about taking these tests. It's stressing, it's difficult because nobody likes to be assessed, right? Or to be evaluated. That's why it is stressing, but it's the opportunity you have to show that you can do it. And it's not only for English teachers. If you want to be a specialist in medicine, you have to pass a test. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to pass a test. If you want to be a translator, you have to pass a test. So that's part of the new normal. Let me use that concept. Okay, and yes, Edwin, nowadays the TOEIC IBT, they have the oral component, and students or people take the test, that particular skill, using artificial intelligence. So you talk to the computer, and the computer is going to get the audio, and is going to send it to the United States, and an engine or a computer is going to grade it there. So that's what is happening now. Standardized tests do not evaluate grammar nowadays. Grammar is evaluated in the productive skills, in the writing and the speaking part. Okay. Maureen, you wanted to say something?
Me? No.
No. Okay.
No. I just was wondering that, okay, you have to take into consideration a lot of things when you are planning an assessment, or when you are planning, you are going to assess something. But I as a future teachers, a student, you also have to take into consideration the environment where you are teaching. Okay, but because of the syllabus of the MEP, they can be a topic about maybe Thai food, and you are teaching in a Isla Venado island, and it doesn't work. So you have to adapt your kind of assessment to the environment of your students' environment. Okay.
And that's technically proven. That's called localization in assessment. So what is localization? That if I have the TOEIC, that is a standardized test that according to ETS, it works all over the world. I can give that test in Panama and in Costa Rica, and it is going to work in a different way, because we are different and we have a different educational system. So what Maureen said is completely true. You have to localize your assessment instruments to the context you are working, to the students you are teaching. Any other question or comment that you have? No? If we don't have any other comment, thank you very much for your attention. And remember, if you want to have a job for life, do testing. We never get it right, and don't feel frustrated if your assessment does not work the way you want it to work. Okay?
Okay, yes. Well, Walter, thank you very much with all your talk. I think that our students and us as a professors learned a lot about the lecture. So I hope that we will have you very soon with us, okay? So thank you very much. And the students also, thank you for spending your time with this very interesting and enrichment lecture. Thank you.